I'm Heather Gustafson. I represent SD 36, which is essentially 9 cities, but mostly Vadnais Heights, Wiper Lake, and Lino Lakes area. I have been in the Senate for 1 session so far. This is my 2nd session.
Bonnie Westlin. I am in Senate District 42, which is Plymouth, a little sliver of Maple Grove and Medicine Lake, and I am in my 1st term.
My name is Nicole Mitchell. I serve District 47, which is all of Woodbury and South Maplewood, and I have served since 2023.
I'm Judy Seeberger. I'm Senator for District 41, and this is my 2nd term as a, it's my 2nd session. 1st term, 2nd session as a senator.
My name is Senator Susan Pa. I represent Senate District 38, which is Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, and Osseo. I've been in the Senate, this is my 2nd year.
I first ran for office because I felt like I couldn't sit on the sidelines anymore. I really looked around and I thought there is a big need for different representation in our district. And I tried to find someone to run for office, and then I realized all the work I was doing was work I could be putting into my own campaign. So I just gathered up all of our volunteers and we decided to go for it, and here we are.
I ran for office because I grew up really poor, coming to the United States as a refugee. And one of the things that I know for a fact gave me the opportunities to succeed and get out of poverty was good legislation, good programs in the nonprofits and the churches and the community groups within my community. And so I just want to make sure that I can contribute to that so that it sets up other kids, other people and families for success and to thrive.
I have kind of a interest in public service, helping people. My career background is all in different areas where I help people. I'm a trial lawyer, I'm a paramedic, I've been a teacher, all these things that sort of naturally lend themselves toward helping people, and this just seemed like a really good opportunity to continue that work.
I've actually been involved in politics since I was 17. I went to my first precinct caucus when I was 17 years old, and so I've been active and involved in politics, mostly helping other people on their campaigns. And an opportunity presented itself in 2016, so I ran 3 times before I won, and I just have always felt that I had something to contribute to my community and am interested in governing and leadership in that capacity.
So it's something I've thought about for a while. I've always been a community volunteer in different aspects, working previously at a women's shelter, a homeless shelter, a lot of work with abused and neglected children. I serve in the military. When I went to law school, I did one of my sessions as an intern on the legal side for Democrats at the time I was in Atlanta for work. Which was very interesting. And I think if you just look at the different things that I've been associated with, state funding and how we set our priorities at the state makes such a difference in the lives of the people in our state. Whether or not we properly fund education, whether we give certain autonomy to people, if we support different rights, or just our values and how we legislate that, I think is really important at the state level. So it's something I'd looked at for a while, and when the opportunity came up and I was back, had moved back to my hometown, I went for it.
I think one of the things I've learned is, well, when I first started running for office, I kept asking people, like, what do I need to know? What do I need to learn? And most people just said, it's about relationships. And I kept thinking, like, sure, it's about relationships, but really it is. And if I had to pick one thing that I've learned over the last year, it is that those relationships that you form make a world of difference. So whether that be relationships in your own caucus, relationships with members in the House, relationships with people on the Republican side, people in your own community is, of course, like the most important. But forming those relationships can bridge a lot of the problems. Building those relationships can sort of form the bridge between a problem and a solution.
Love that.
I think what's changed is this year on day one, I wasn't brand new. I kind of knew how things worked a little bit and had been working over the interim on some things, as opposed to last year. All of the freshmen started on day one, literally knowing virtually nothing about how things operated here. And I think I've just sort of eased into kind of a lane for myself.
So obviously I've only been in a year and a half, so not too many changes. Last year was very fast paced in terms of so many things that kind of hadn't been addressed for years. And then when the majority shifted, a lot of priorities that we were able to finally work on. And so it was just a different pace. This one is more policy based, but having a whole year under my belt now, I was able to work through the off session and really start working on some bigger projects. So it's felt almost as busy, but in a different way, because I have more things I've been able to personally craft and work on, in some cases for months, to really make more meaningful long-term changes in different areas.
Yeah. I don't have much to go by. This is only my second session. So it's, this session is a little different from the first in that it's, we started later and maybe the pace isn't as high paced as it was last session, but we're still moving a lot of good stuff through.
Boy, that's interesting. So I am from the suburbs, and Plymouth, Maple Grove, all of that area was farmland for a very long time. So we've seen a lot of growth and development out in that part of the Twin Cities, kind of the western and northwestern suburbs. How has it changed for women? That's a good question. I think in some ways it has changed, and in some ways we need to do better. I certainly support having an ERA in our Constitution to make sure that we really are committed to and ensuring equal rights in our state. Things have gotten a little bit better, but we know that there's still a lot of work to do. Wage gaps, making sure people have access to affordable daycare. I was a single parent for many, many, many years, and so those issues in particular tend to hit women who are the sole breadwinners for their families. So there's a lot more that we can do.
I think there's been a huge shift on women's rights, but I still think we have a long way to go. So when I was growing up, even the church we went to was pretty clear that women didn't really have a role in the church other than to serve. And I go back to that same church now. I was just there as an election judge, even though I'm not a member, and the ideology has changed there. I'm in the military, and my first military unit was in Minnesota. And even the way they would align us if we had to deploy, the women would want to go and do all the things, but some of the male leadership would intentionally not give us those opportunities because they didn't want to have to deal with women in the field or things of that nature. So I have definitely now I'm a woman and I'm a commander. So and there's still not enough of us, but I think as more of us make leadership roles, we are trying to open the doors and pull other people up with us that should be at the table. So I think it's a constantly improving process, but we still need to make sure, whether it's women's rights or other areas of equity, that we are continuing to make those strides.
Minnesota has made amazing progress when it comes to the rights of folks that live in the state, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, the rights of trans folks, and I've been really proud to be a part of that process to ensure that everybody feels welcomed and accepted here in the state of Minnesota. We had marriage equality that passed many years ago, and we're a leader in that at that time. So I'm pleased to be a part of those initiatives, because I really believe everybody deserves to be respected and honored and live their life with dignity.
I feel like the Minnesota that I grew up in is sort of a really good little snippet of Minnesota in general. So I grew up in a really, really small town that had, maybe 4,000 people in it. No stoplights, mostly dirt roads, mostly people who either worked in a farm or the factory. And then as I got older, it started to develop more, and we saw, businesses come in, and now if you look at my hometown, they've got a Walmart and a McDonald's, so it's completely changed. And that sort of reminds me of like what's happened here. We're growing, we're getting bigger, we're expanding, and we're doing it together. And sometimes you might look around and say like, wow, this place looks different. But I would just challenge people to say different isn't bad. And it's good when we see new people come in, new voices, new perspectives. That's really when we're representing Minnesota, is when we have everybody at the table and able to sort of share their experiences. And then that's really the best way to run the government. I would say, what was the other part of that?
How do you feel Minnesota's changed on women's rights?
So when it comes to Minnesota and women's rights, I've always seen us as being a progressive state. We are the longest running blue state. We've always put workers' rights first, and that includes women. Women are a backbone of this economy that often gets overlooked. I feel like the things that we fought for and won last session are really reflective of things that were sort of always a part of Minnesota, but just didn't have the leadership to see it through. I have 4 daughters. I am so happy that we all live here in Minnesota where women's rights are represented.
Well, so I worked a lot on the school resource officer bill. That's certainly taken up a significant amount of time this session. And I'm actually really proud of that bill. It was definitely a collaborative effort between members of the other body, our members here, the governor's office, stakeholders. I felt a very good collaborative process, and I'm really proud of not only the process but the bill that we came up with at the end, and that was passed today. So I'm relieved to be able to talk about something else. I'm vice chair of the elections committee, and so there's a lot of good work we're doing in terms of supporting democracy. And then last year, I think one of the other big bills that I have certainly gotten feedback about how it's helped is I was the chief author for the special education cross-subsidy bill. And although we didn't get 100% funding, we got 50% funding, and that is substantially more than we've been investing in special education.
Wow, there's been a few things I've been working on. I have what I think is really interesting to me is a major housing bill, making more environmental and green housing and helping address our housing shortage, which I came to from the environmental perspective. Housing is not, one of the things that is, I would consider one of my areas of having a background in. And child protection, because we have a shortage and problem in Minnesota that's literally making some families not have stable housing. So I came from a different background, but got to learn this whole new area this year. And I would say that is another area that's really important to me. I was named the Senate lead for the Child Protection Task Force. I have a background as a foster parent and with advocacy for abused and neglected children. And so I'm proud that we're able to make some more sweeping changes that are child-centered to make sure we have the best outcomes for children in Minnesota.
I don't know how long I'll do this job, and hopefully it'll have quite a few successes, but I don't know that I'll ever do anything as important as universal school meals. Someday I'll retire, and probably within a year everyone will have forgotten who I was. But no kid will ever go without breakfast or lunch again at school because of universal school meals. And I'm so proud of that. It just makes me feel so good to know that we were able to accomplish something that helps families, helps students, and addresses childhood hunger in a way that people can see immediately. It improves the lives of Minnesotans, and it's just overall a really good and meaningful thing to do. And I'm just blessed that I was able to carry that bill.
What's been the most gratifying for me is to take issues that have been identified by my constituents or issues that I have noticed over the years and really take meaningful action on those issues. My predecessor, Commissioner Carla Bingham, former Senator Carla Bingham, started the refinery safety bill that I was pleased to get across the finish line last session. There have been a few. I was just meeting with a lobbyist on some issues that have been bothering me that I think we can get some traction on, if not this session, maybe next session. And then my work in EMS. We've been doing a lot of work during the interim to address issues with regard to EMS systems, and I think we're going to be able to do some meaningful work on that and get some really important legislation passed this session still to improve our EMS systems throughout the state.
Well, I always keep my 4 daughters in mind whenever I'm making decisions, but I would say that one of the people who was just an early on support system and became a quick mentor of mine was Senator Carrie Dietzick. She took me under her wing. She is one of the first people I go to for advice. She works so hard, and I've just never seen anybody have so much respect across the board. And I really admire that about her, and I hope I can sort of carry that on in my district as well.
I've had some really good mentors along the way. Senator Dietzick, Senator Murphy, Senator Rest. I've known Senator Rest for years. In fact, she was my senator for many years. Lyndon Carlson was my House representative for many years. The very first campaign I ever volunteered on was for Senator Ember Reichgott when she was still Ember Reichgott. I've had the blessing of being surrounded by a lot of women, and in our caucus, where we have a majority of women, I have any number of colleagues that I look to that I have really deep admiration for. And in terms of inspiration, they inspire me, but I think also I've just been inspired by everyday activists who show up for their communities to get really good work done.
Well, I think we have a number of outstanding women in the Senate that we can all look to for inspiration. I don't have a particular person, although many of our women offer mentorship in different ways, so I think it's a really wonderful collaborative relationship. I tend to look at wow, I really like how she handled that, and think about incorporating that, or just little pieces that would work for me, because I think just entirely modeling yourself after one person doesn't work, because you have to bring some of your own personality and your own skill sets to the table. So for me, I more look at all the different fabulous women we have and take the parts that I know would work well in how I incorporate my legislative style.
So my inspiration since I was a kid has always been Martin Luther King Jr. So that has never changed throughout my life. And I think it's because at a very young age, I think I was probably in 4th grade when it really hit me, the things that he was doing, his words, they impacted me, and it has never left me throughout my whole entire life. And I think it's because he has fought for people, civil rights, for people to have a voice, and everything about him. And throughout my life, I have always looked to his words as inspiration, and honestly kind of like a compass of the kind of work I want to make sure that I do as well.
Probably my biggest inspiration are my kids. I have 2 boys, and kind of viewing their life, viewing life through their eyes, and through their experiences has really informed how I really come at all of my work. My youngest son has autism and some mental health challenges, and it really has informed how I approach various issues and the experiences that we've had as a family. And he's really, both my kids have been tremendous inspiration on how I come to this job.
So most of my adult life, I have been volunteering and working with young girls and women, entrepreneurs, helping them to succeed, being a mentor. And that has given me a lot of insight into the struggles and challenges and barriers that a lot of women and girls go through. That has inspired me throughout my life to do the work that I do. It reminds me that there's still so much more that we need to do. But I have a big passion for young people. The reason why is because when I talk with young people, they tell us exactly what they need. They keep it real and they inspire me to do more because I know they deserve it. And we have to do more for them. So my work experience, my engagement with young people is what pushes me every day to do the work that I do.
My life outside of the legislature, it looks a lot like most people's lives outside of the legislature, or just most people in Minnesota. I have a lot of kids. I have 4 kids. We are a paycheck to paycheck family. I live in a small ranch house. We've lived there for a long time, married with pets, and it's just a lot of busyness that sort of makes up most of the lives of Minnesota families. But with that comes all of these reminders that politics really can be a force for good, and we can do good things. And now that I sort of work here and then leave here and go live my regular life, I can see the decisions that we've made pop up, and people will notice it, and I'll be sitting in the softball bleachers watching my daughter, and I'll hear somebody talk about how they're excited that they can take some time off of work because their husband is having surgery, and now they can take part in paid family medical leave when it passes. And that's exciting. I hear people say like, oh, it's so nice now to send my kid on the bus. I don't have to worry about packing a lunch. There's all sorts of things that you just realize, like, you really can run for office and do good things. Politics doesn't have to be gross. Politics can be something that's good if you keep it centered on people and what people need.
So I'm a family law attorney. I spend my days negotiating, mostly. I'm also a mediator. And a lot of what I do is really trying to get people to come together to agree to some sort of a common settlement or negotiation on a particular issue. And I think that certainly transfers here. It's challenging here. You have, so many people who may have different ideas on an issue or a policy. And I think the challenge is always trying to bridge those differences so that we can come together and agree on some sort of a collaborative compromise position that will move things forward for the people of Minnesota. And so I think I do try to bring that experience from my law practice and experience as a mediator here, sometimes successfully, sometimes not.
I've had a really kind of diverse experience in my life, from serving as a woman in the military to being a meteorologist and working on climate background. I serve as an election judge in my community. I've done a lot of various volunteer work. I have a law degree. So for me, it's been really interesting because I can pull from different areas and have a background where I can speak to things on elections, for example, sitting as an election judge, running some of the polling sites. When someone brings up something that might not be accurate, I can say, no, this is actually how we do it. Or the same thing with climate change. I have that background of expertise so that I can, if something is said that is incorrect on the record about climate change, I can correct that. So I personally really like that I have that diverse background. It can also be challenging in terms of then I want to work on so many different things, and you only have so much capacity of what you can do every session and actually be able to get all the bills done and the testimony done. So I think the biggest problem is just pacing myself sometimes.
I joke that I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So I started out as a trial lawyer, and I still do that. I joined my fire department, became a paramedic. I still do that. I became licensed as a teacher, and I haven't been in the classroom in a while, but it's still something that I very much enjoy doing, and it's actually my favorite job. So kind of having all of those perspectives coming to the legislature. I mean, I have real world experience as a teacher in the classroom. I have real world experience in the court system defending people who have been sued. I have real world experience in the field of public safety and EMS out on the streets. So having that experience helps to understand not only what the issues are, but how we approach those issues and what we can do to further help people here in Minnesota.
I would say the biggest challenge is just looking at your day and trying to triage your schedule. And I think that that's something that women, especially women with kids and who are working moms, and we're just kind of built for that. And so, I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but one of those challenges that comes up all the time is, what do I need to do first? What do I need to do second? How can I get these two people to stop fighting? And how can I find a solution to this problem that's maybe a little bit more creative, or whatever it looks like. I can't tell you how much I brought in my experience as a mom and my experience as a classroom teacher into this job. Classroom management, thinking on your feet, being willing to be flexible and creative. But yeah, every day those challenges are still there, and you just try to roll with it.
Definitely.
The SRO bill was really challenging. It was a heavy lift, and I know that there are some people who are reasonably happy with it. I know there are some folks who wish we had done some additional things on that bill. And I think one of the challenges for us as legislators is trying to manage expectations. Certainly there are always different groups of people or policies that need money, education, health and human services, et cetera. So we're all sort of trying to get in there and advocate for the dollars we need for the things that we believe are important for our communities. And there's clearly not enough to fund everything that we would like to do. And so, again, setting expectations for folks so that they're realistic expectations about what we can do, but a commitment to continue to work in the future.
But I joked time management, but I think it's time management. There's a lot that goes on here, and there's a lot of information to hold in your head and be able to talk about, very quickly. And, I've experienced, I think my past experience as a trial lawyer has kind of helped me be able to do that and to think on the fly. But it really is sometimes a challenge to keep my schedule online and keep everything kind of ready to discuss and teed up, ready to talk about in my brain. So that actually has been the biggest challenge of everything here.
So I think one of the challenges is because I have such a diverse background and so many areas that interest me, from climate and environment to elections to veterans issues to child protection, and they're all very different, that I get asked to collaborate on a lot of different issues, and I just have to really prioritize and make sure I'm not getting stretched too thin on all of those issues, because there's so many fabulous topics and important things we need to work on that you really have to prioritize how much you can do in one given session.
My advice would be get involved. Do it. I think it can sometimes feel daunting. I certainly never expected to be elected as a senator. It's an honor. I am truly loving every minute of it, but it was something that I never thought I could do or would do. If someone's thinking about getting involved, get involved. You'll never regret it.
Do it. If you have an interest, get involved. Run for something, find someone to mentor you. I already have people I'm working with, even high schoolers that have that interest. I have a high schooler I worked on a bill with, and that we're actually going to be hopefully presenting later today. But I think if you have that interest, there are a lot of people that will help show you the route help engage you in different ways you can be involved, from, maybe you want to be a volunteer, and maybe that means door knocking, or maybe that means I have a friend that only wants to do the paperwork side of it and doesn't, want that kind of face-to-face interaction that makes her nervous. But there are so many ways that you can get involved in different capacities. But I definitely don't think anyone should ever think like, oh, I couldn't do it. Because we need people of all different backgrounds in politics and all different perspectives. It makes us better. So I wouldn't ever want someone to feel like there's a barrier that, they couldn't be someone that could.
My advice to anybody who wants to run for office now is to stay centered in what it is that's pushing you to get off of the sidelines and get your name on a ballot, because something inside of you is saying, I can't take it anymore, and I'm looking around and I don't see anybody else addressing this problem, so I'm gonna do it. And then remember that, like, write it down and refer to it often, because you will forget. This place can be just crazy on a daily basis. So you have to stay centered on the reason why you're here. And the reason why you're here is because people in your community saw that you were the person they needed that would best represent them. And so it always comes back to the people that you represent, what they care about, and are they being heard? And just stick with that. Be nice to people, work hard, give everyone a fair shot, fight for what you know is right.
Do it. Do it, and there are plenty of opportunities to be mentored. I love working on campaigns, and I love helping new candidates. So I think every time there's an opportunity to go to a training, find something you're passionate about, find other people who are passionate about the same thing, and start organizing a system of support. It's hard work. Running for office is hard work, and honestly, governing is hard. This is not for the faint of heart, but we need people. We need good people who are committed to doing good work, and we need people from all backgrounds that reflect all of Minnesota. Every part of our state need to be represented.
Well, I'm just excited that there have been a lot of things we've had even the off session to work on. So especially being able to craft legislation from the ground up, which was new to me this year, because last year we just kind of dove in and I was just getting into office. So I am very excited about a piece that I have that expands more affordable and environmental housing across the state and addresses our housing shortage. I'm excited to get some work done in child protection this session, but also know that we're going to work on it a lot, even in the interim. And I'm just excited. It was just even exciting to see everyone again, when these are your colleagues you've worked with for months and months, and then you don't get to see them in the off session. So it's really been amazing to kind of get back to that collaboration.
One of the things I'm excited about this session is just continuing to serve as Vice Chair of Education Finance. I got into this because I was a teacher in a classroom who realized that so many of the problems that we're facing in schools can't be solved by just your school board or just your PTA or just moms and dads or just teachers. It has to be sort of a collective effort. And sometimes, both fortunately and unfortunately, it has to be the state budget. And so once I sort of figured out that the problems that I saw in the schools really needed to be controlled by, fighting for that funding to make sure that we can pay for the things that we need in schools, that's really what inspired me to run for office. And so I'm excited that I get to serve on that committee, continue to advocate for schools, continue to work for teachers, and just try to do the best I can by the people in my district.
I think part of the excitement this year is feeling like, again, I've kind of found a groove, and I feel like I have the ability to sort of step into leadership a bit more, feeling more comfortable in that role.
The EMS work that we've been done, I think it's going to be groundbreaking, the way that we deliver pre-hospital care here in the state of Minnesota. I've been working with Representative Hewitt over in the House, and we've been meeting with EMS agencies all over the state in the interim. We've got some exciting new ideas. We've got some really, I think, groundbreaking initiatives that we're ready to start putting into practice to hopefully shore up our EMS system in the short term and make it stronger in the long term, and really refigure and reimagine how we deliver pre-hospital care.
I think it's wonderful that we have such a diverse Senate right now, especially I happen to be on the Democratic side, and we're all bringing these different perspectives, especially as women. I'm a single mom, and I have young kids. Some people have children of different ages. We have people who are helping raise their grandkids and then also being a senator. So I think the fact that we are becoming not only more women, but more women with diverse experiences really strengthens us. So I think the fact that we have not only more women, but more women of different experiences, from single moms to moms with babies and grandparents helping raise their kids, and different ethnic backgrounds and different religious backgrounds. I think all of that perspective makes us stronger in Minnesota, and you can really see it in some of the legislation. We've taken a closer priority on child protection, on making sure daycare is affordable, and really looking at some of those issues, on making sure we ensure reproductive freedoms. So I think when you get more women in leadership, we tend to work on the issues that historically were left behind.
I'm so honored to be doing this work. I am humbled to be here. It's been really exciting getting to work on a lot of these issues. I love hearing from my constituents. I love hearing from other folks in Minnesota. I get some of my best ideas from people who come to me with their thoughts and ideas. So I'm truly grateful for everyone who has ever reached out. I want folks to feel like they can reach out, talk to me, bring me their questions and their issues, and I'm happy to sit down and work with anybody.